Hi friends, I'm Felicia. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my March wrap-up. I'm not sure why I'm talking like this, but I've been cooped up in my house for 3 weeks, so you know. So March was middle grade March, and I had a lot of fun participating in that. So I have quite a few books that fit into that prompt, and then I also have some other books that I read. I will just talk about the books in the order that I read them. So the first book that I read was Liar and Spy by Rebecca Stead, and I believe this is her. I was gonna say this is her second novel. I actually have no idea. This is the third book by her that I've read, and so far I've enjoyed all of them. Although I enjoyed this one more than the last one that I read, but not as much as the first one that I read. Okay. And this one deals with a boy named George, and he moves into a new apartment building with his parents, and he is just kind of dealing with that adjustment of moving to a new place, and he meets some new kids that live in the building, and they start basically a spy club to, you know, keep tabs on the nefarious goings on in their building. And I quite enjoy this. I find that Rebecca Stead is such a great middle grade writer. She explores feelings that are like really prevalent to this age group, but not in a way that feels like she's dumbing it down like that adults can definitely enjoy her books as well. So I really enjoyed this one. I would recommend. I changed my mind. I'm going to talk about all my middle grade books at once, and then I'll talk about the other stuff. So then the next middle grade book that I finished was Pickle Park Raises Her Game by Erin Yun, and I won this in a giveaway. Kaylee from Books for MKs was doing a giveaway for this book, and I won, and I got it just at the right time in March, and I read it like right away. So that doesn't happen very often, so that was good. But this is basically a retelling of Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, which I read last, was it August? Yeah, it was like August, September that I read it, and absolutely loved it. And so I was excited to read this. And so this follows Pippa, and she plays basketball for her school, and she ends up getting a scholarship to play basketball at this very, you know, fancy school, like think Chilton from Gilmore Girls. I've been watching Gilmore Girls, and so Chilton is on my mind. But yeah, so it's kind of like that rags to riches story, and overall I liked it a lot. I thought it was a really good adaptation of a book that has like not so kid-friendly themes, and like puts it into this story that's enjoyable for, you know, younger readers. And so yeah, I would recommend it because I think it's like a good gateway into those classics, reading these retellings. So yeah, I enjoyed it, and I mean, no one's heard of this book, so I think more people would enjoy this book. So, you know, check it out. The next book that I finished was The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill, and I listened to that on audio, and I enjoyed it. I will say I did not love it as much as I think everyone else seems to. Like, it wasn't a full 5 stars for me, but definitely 4 stars. I did really enjoy it. Basically, it's a story about I mean, most of you have heard about this book already, but it's a story about there's a village, and every year they sacrifice a baby. They leave a baby in the woods for the witch as a sacrifice, and they don't know what happens to the babies. They think that they probably die, but the witch is actually a good witch, and she doesn't know why these people are leaving their babies in the woods, and so she takes them every year, and she takes them and brings them to another village far away, and just leaves them there for, gives them to families there that they can raise this child. So the main character of the book is a baby that's been left, and the witch comes and takes her, and she feeds these babies Starlight once she runs out of milk on their journey back, and so she gets mixed up one day, and she feeds this baby Moonlight instead of Starlight, which has very powerful magic. And so she has to deal with this baby growing up with very powerful magic that she doesn't know how to control. And that's kind of where things take off. And so yeah, I thought it was a really good fantasy story. I felt like like I kind of struggled with the babies being sacrificed aspect. But I mean, that's part of the story, and it's a fantasy, and everything worked out okay in the end, so it was okay. But yeah, I would recommend it if you like fantasy, middle grade fantasy. I would maybe recommend this for like kind of more towards like 10, 11, as far as like age range goes. But yeah, I liked it, so I would read more Kelly Barnhill in the future. Okay, and then the next one that I read, this is so random. I read Five Little Peppers and How They Grew by Margaret Sidney, and I listened to this one on audio as well. And I've had this book forever and ever, and I actually bought it because it has Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass on the other side, so you flip it and then whatever. So you get your... And I've had this forever and ever, and I actually don't care about Alice in Wonderland. So I was going to unhaul this book. But then I thought, well, I'll read this story, because I remember seeing this cover, and like, can you see this boy's expression? I just can't get over it. Every time I look, it's great. Anyways, so I remember this book from my childhood. I don't remember reading it, but I remember this title. And I don't remember reading it, but I think my teacher might have read it to us in school when I was a kid, because as I was reading, I was like, this seems familiar. This seems familiar. So it's probably deep in the recesses of my mind. Yeah, it's very similar in feeling and story to Little Women. There's 5 siblings, and their last name is Pepper, so they're 5 little peppers. Duh. And then, so it follows just basically them in their hijinks as children, and it kind of takes place, I think it's the same time period, roughly. It had very similar feeling. And then there's like, they meet a new boy who's a neighbor, and he has a wealthy dad, and just felt very much like that dynamic too with the March Girls and Lori. Yeah. So I would recommend this. I think I would recommend this for like younger kids who maybe aren't quite old enough for Little Women, because that follows them like way farther than this follows them. This is like a year in their lives. So yeah, if you like Little Women, I would give this a try. I didn't like it as much as I liked Little Women, but I still enjoyed it. Okay, then I read Andersens Fairy Tales by Hans Christian Andersen. And this, I read this for Middle Grade March and also for the Unread Shelf Project, because the prompt for March was to read a book that has been on your shelf the longest. And I don't know which book has been on my shelf the longest, but I don't remember when I got this book. Well before I started BookTube, almost 6 years ago. So I just decided to pick this one up for that prompt. It's got a Hans Christian Andersen's Fairy Tales in here. So some that you might be familiar with: The Little Mermaid, The Ugly Duckling, The Tin Soldier is in this one. And I remember my cousins had some illustrated books. They were like this big and like just huge. But they had like one story in them, and one of them was The Tin Soldier. And I remember that story, like, I remember those illustrations. Even now, you know, 25 years later, I remember them. But yeah, it's got the Snow Queen, the Little Match Girl, the Emperor's New Clothes, the Ice Maiden. Okay, and most of the time I was bored. I was bored with these stories. Some of them were good, but like most of them I was just bored, and I didn't even actually finish the last story because I was so bored. I was like, no, I don't care anymore. I'm not forcing myself to finish it. So I got to like page 160, and then I was like, meh, I'm done now. And I'll use this book for crafts because it's an old discarded library copy and it's not in very good shape. So thank you for your service to my crafting world. If that horrifies you, I'm so sorry, but you know what? It's okay. The next book that I finished was Uprooted by Lynn Reed Banks, and this is fiction based on the author's real life experience as a child. So her name is Lynn Reed Banks, and the main character's name is Lindy Hanks. And I was like, that's a little bit on the nose, isn't it? But yeah, so she was, I think, 10 years old, and at kind of the beginning of World War II. Yeah, it was the beginning of World War II, and her mom and her cousin moved from England to Saskatoon in Saskatchewan. If you're not from Canada, Saskatchewan is kind of like the nowhere place, and like Saskatoon is just the most randomest place that you could move to. But apparently back then, it was more of a hub. And now it's just kind of like Saskatoon. Yeah, Saskatoon, whatever. Sorry if you're from Saskatchewan. But Manitoba doesn't get any credit either, so let's be real. It's all about BC or Ontario. So, whatever. Manitoba and Saskatchewan are just like in the middle. No one cares about them. Anyways, so it just follows her and her mom and her cousin as they move here and get adjusted to life, and kind of chronicles their lives throughout the next few years of the war. And I really enjoyed the writing. I thought the writing was just really engaging. I flew through this. Like, I read it in just like 2 days. I really liked it. And I also really liked kind of seeing, first of all, how Canada was during the war. At that point in the war, it was very interesting to me. And to see it from someone's perspective that like actually lived through it, not like researching it and then writing about it, you know what I mean? And then also just seeing how the culture was to someone from like the outside of it. So it was very interesting. I would really recommend this for like a historical fiction middle grade read. Yeah, I really liked it, so it was good. Okay, the last middle grade book that I read was Xena the Space Girl by Ben Hatke? I'm not sure how to say his last name. Anyways, so this is a graphic novel that I've seen around the past few years, and I decided to pick it up on a whim because I saw it on Scribd. So it follows a girl named Xena, and she and her best friend are playing one day in the yard, and then this mysterious device appears out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden, boom, they are transported to an alien planet, and then he gets captured by like an alien cult. And then she has to go save him, and she meets some friendly people along the way to help her. And I thought it was very cute. Definitely would recommend for people who like sci-fi at that young age, which I did. I would have definitely loved to read this when I was younger. And it was a very fun story, and there's I think 4 books in the series, so I'll definitely be continuing on because I want to know if they will get home. So there you go. So those are the middle grade books that I read. I read just a few more that are not middle grade. So the first one of those is Little Moments of Love by Katana Chetwynd. And this is like one of those Instagram comics that like get shared around a lot. I have followed her on Instagram for quite a while already, and I saw her graphic novel on Scribd, and I was bored, so I decided to read it. And it's just exactly what the title says. It's just collections of little moments of love between her and her boyfriend. Very cute, very relatable, definitely enjoyable. The next book that I finished, Thunderhead by Neil Shusterman. This is the second book in the Arc of A Scythe series. And I can't tell you what this book is about, but the first book is about 2 teenagers who become apprentices to a scythe in a world where people don't die, and the only way they can die is if a person that is ordained a scythe comes and gleans them. That is the only way that people die in this world. And yeah, so this is following our apprentices in this book, and I think this series is great. I think it's so interesting. Just the world that's developing. We get a lot more world development in this book, and yeah, I just really enjoyed the deeper exploration into this world that Neil Shusterman is building, or has built. The series is done. I have the last book on my shelf to read. Yeah, but also I want to say, I really like this series. It's just so, to me, it's so engaging, and it makes me think, and I really like it. So there. The next book that I finished is called How to Lead When You're Not in Charge by Clay Scroggins. And I read this for a group that I have at church. A bunch of the under leaders in the worship ministry, we were reading this book together and talking about it. And it's basically what it says. It tells you ways that you can lead when you have a position of influence. And it doesn't necessarily need to be in church. It is coming from that angle, but definitely would have points that apply otherwise, whether it's at work or at some other organization that you deal with or volunteer with, any kind of situation where you might have influence, but you're not like the leader or in charge, because yeah, you like support the leader, because that's what I do. But yeah, so it's like, how can you take that influence you have and use it for good, and basically things like that. For me, this is like a middle book. I think it had a lot of good information. I just found it kind of repetitive. Yeah, it just eventually was like, okay, you're just making the same point over and over again now. But the idea behind it is solid. And so I would recommend it, just because it does get kind of boring towards the end. But I would still recommend it if that's something that might, if that's something that sounds interesting to you. Yeah. The last book that I have to talk about is Anne of the Ant by Ellen Montgomery. And I'm never ever going to get over these beautiful illustrations by Ellie Mackay. I have to say her name every time because I just love them so much. She needs that much credit. Okay. She's the best. Look at this. Beautiful. So this is the third book in the Anne series, and I've been reading this with the Anne Along that is hosted by Tia and All the Books and Amanda from the Curly Reader. And Anne goes off to college, and hijinks ensue. So that's basically what happens with this one. This it's not my favorite, but I still love it a lot. It's just not my favorite, except for the end. If you know, you know. Okay. So those are all the books that I read in March. I read a lot of books, and I got a lot of books finished. And hopefully, so far April is shaping to be just as good as a reading month. Good of a reading month. I know English. English is easy. Apparently I need to talk to people more. You stay in your house for 3 weeks, you forget how to talk to people. Yeah. And today is only the 5th, and I'm already like, yeah, April's gonna be an awesome reading month, but like, I've already done so much reading this month. I've gotten into a really good groove, and can I just tell you, I have read something every day so far this year, except for one day, and that was because I was not home all day, and I was busy all day. And then when I got home, I was too tired to even read a couple pages before bed. But I have read something with my eyeballs every day this year, which is great. And I'm just enjoying reading a lot of books, getting my TBR down. It's good. There's a dog barking outside. I guess he's telling me to shut up. Yeah, so I'm done. I'm done talking. If you've read any of these books and have thoughts about them, let me know down below. I would love to chat about them with you. Or chat about anything. If you need to talk about anything, and you just need to have words, you know, just typing them down below. And I would love to just talk and chat. Yeah. I'm always available on Instagram DM if you just need someone to listen to. I'm good at listening. I'm babbling now. Okay. So that's all that I have for today's video. So if you have thoughts about any of the books, leave them down below. If you have any recommendations for me based on these books and you think I would like them, leave those down below as well. I would just love to chat with you in the comments. And I thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a really good day, and until next time, so long and thanks for the fish.